our studios right now, and I'm fired up because we got Brad Bald in the house.
Oh, baby.
And every time I get together with this dude, it is just a powerful conversation. And I am excited, man. I'm excited to chat and see where this conversation goes. Thanks for being here.
Oh, of course. And I'm glad that we just shared that lovely Mexican meal together. Las Fiestas. What an experience.
Yeah.
You know, it was a little bit longer than I'd hoped, but we had some good bonding in the car, you and I. We can always share good stories, and that can roll over to other good stories.
Yeah, I was telling Brad actually that I was in a negative place mentally. I was frustrated. I ran into someone that there's a history there, not pointing fingers, taking blame myself. And I was pissed off. And I sat down where I was at and just looked over and saw a 12-year-old boy with cancer, no hair, just laughing and having fun with his family. And it just put things into perspective for me in such a deep way because my headspace was terrible and I was frustrated and I was upset over something so little that doesn't even matter. And I love to just hear kind of your perspective on that. And have you ever had a moment in your life where you just saw something and it instantly changed perspective?
I think that happens a lot, right? I think it could be in the form of a video. It could be the form of a movie. It could be the slightest bit. But I remember, I mean, many a times that I'm, with folks who have suffered either the loss of a family member or they've gone through significant trauma or they've experienced cancer or another, potentially death experience. And it's interesting to hear and extremely powerful to hear their stories and their experiences before and then getting through.
True.
Let's say cancer, for instance. And there's so many little things that we get worried about in life that drag on for years and years. And there's nothing worse, right, than going back a month into a conversation that you had with a colleague and you're thinking to yourself, why did I say that? I sounded dumb. I can't believe I said that. I wish I could go back. I wish I could have sounded sharper. I wish I could have been more knowledgeable. I wish I didn't look like such an idiot in that situation. And you're spending so much energy going back and replaying the video, replaying the tape on how things could have changed. And you can't do anything about that, right? It's like the whole thing of regret, right? I think that is one of the toughest and most powerful emotions that us as humans can experience, because that can plague you for months, years, and sometimes your entire life. And, it's such, I've suffered from it. And it takes a lot of work to get through. When I took and we're really rolling into this in a subject after subject after subject, because before this, we had so much stuff that we wanted to talk about, but I'm glad that we kind of organically came on the topic of regret because it had such a big influence, on who I am today that shaped me. And that was, a year and a half ago when I took the sabbatical and I took the time off before I started my new job. And when I made the decision, it was the best decision. I had no doubt about it in the world. And looking back on it, I know I made the right decision. However, as things go on and
time progresses,
and you go through some big significant life events. You're in the cold. It's winter time. It was 0 degrees in Nashville. It was gray. I was lonely. And what emotion pops up? Regret. Why did I take the time off? Why did I leave that job? Why did I make those decisions to leave myself right here in this position? Because when you're going through it, that's all you can see. You can only see the darkness. You can only see yourself that you made such a mistake and you think so down and so negative towards yourself. And you replay literally every single second of your past, wondering what could have been different if I would have changed, that one day or said a different thing than what I said that one day. It's extremely, extremely powerful. And, I mean, that feeling is probably not going to go away, regret in general, but the regret over that situation, because now looking back on it, where I'm in such a different career state, it's totally different season of my life, and I can look back and say, that what an experience.
Yeah.
Grateful for the lessons, and as hard as it was, would I want to go back and through those some of those ups and downs? Sure, some of the highs were great,
Yeah.
but the lows were pretty darn brutal.
So you're saying that even if you make a mistake or you choose the wrong path, not to have such lengthy regret. So how do you work through that? Like, is it one of those things where you identify, you sit with it, and then you just move on? Because I live my life hope looking futuristically to not to make decisions that I won't regret, right? And we're not perfect. So there is things that I do regret. There's things in the last 6 months that I regret doing, saying. And for me, it brings awareness to not jump into things, to slow down sometimes in order to speed up, right? And I think you're right. It's like you can't have regret over things, but you do need to sit with something, I believe, and really work through it and make sure that those wounds aren't expanding and are contracting, right? But I think it's really hard to do that.
You really have to go through it. And regret is why I think this portion is so important for you and I, for being go-getters and taking action. Is regret is much more powerful and it stings the most for inaction.
Inaction.
Stuff that you wish you did, stuff that you wish that you said, stuff,
Wow, you just put that in a lot of perspective for me, because I was lumping two types of regret together and you just separated them from two completely different scenarios regarding the same word.
Yes.
Inaction, I have a really hard time with, so I try to take action. But that's different from doing something that I wish I didn't do, but that I thought was right in the moment, and reflecting on it and then moving through it. So two different types of regret,
Right.
that are both drastically different, but pretty heavy and weighty.
Very, very heavy and weighty. And you really I couldn't tell the difference between the two, but I studied a lot, did a lot of work on myself. And
that's my biggest regret, is inaction. I was talking to someone today on another podcast. They're interviewing me, and and he said, "What can you share with people? What's one thing you can share with people?" And part of it was, make the decision now. Don't move too quick. Think it through. But like, if you're unhappy, dude, in 30, 40, 50 years from now, that regret's going to feel so much worse. And because you didn't take action on what you knew you should have, right? Like, you got to follow your intuition. You got to follow the gut. You got to follow what you believe is right. And I would rather follow what I thought was right and go down a wrong path than never put my foot in the dirt and go down any path.
Exactly. And it's the whole philosophy of taking time off, right? If you talk to entrepreneurs, right? I mean, we read the books, we listen to the podcasts. What is one thing that they always go back and say they wish they did more of? It was travel, spend time with family, maybe take some time off before they made a drastic career move.
Yep.
And to exactly your point, if 10 years went by and I didn't take that action step, God knows of where I would be, what situations, what tough experiences I went through. Who knows? And I will never know. But because I took action, I mean, a year later, look at the position that I'm in now, that I'm super grateful for, how everything's kind of came together. Yes, sure, it took longer.
And you can go be a yogi and get certified, and you can write your poetry, and you can have a job you love, and you can surround yourself with people. This is the Brad Ball
keep it going.
2024. Let's go.
Yes. And that's the fun part about chapters and seasons of life, and
did you think right now in this moment you'd be writing articles for the Nashville Bar and you'd be invited to be speaking on panels and like,
I didn't even know what the next day when I was a year ago, right? It's a year and a half ago. I was sky high. I'm traveling, I'm moving. I'm like, this is the best thing. The whole world, was open for me. But you go high, it's easy to go down. It's easy to slip if you don't have the right tools in place, right? And
you got to get up to get
you
down.
do, yeah. And look, you can't take the good times for what they are unless you've had some of the bad times, and
Pain doesn't feel, what is it? Pleasure doesn't feel so good if it wasn't for pain.
yes. And
You wouldn't admire the sun if it wasn't for the winter, right?
I like the sayings. Yeah. Well, it's that same message is would I go through that down spiral again? Heck no. Would I wish that upon anybody? Heck no. And do I have to go back and relive that? No, because I'm here in this present moment. And what happened in my past is who I am now. That shaped me for who I am now. I have a totally different perspective because of that past year and a half,
Yeah.
which I'm very, very grateful for, right? And I can look back. Thank goodness. You just mentioned it. Thank goodness for poetry. That's my life. That's my chapter journeys that I'm able to basically write in because, creativity spurs for me in like the moment, right? It's when I'm really needing to release something. And poetry always happens when I'm feeling vulnerable or I'm feeling I need to share something or I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling depressed. And poetry, I can put that in, I feel instantly better. And I can look back and look through and say, I was saying stuff in such organic phrases that I couldn't imagine in this shed of my season
Yep.
to go back and say those lines. But
Makes a lot of sense.
I written down. That's my art form. And
Yeah.
I can always look back and say, you know what? I those poems came from a really, really deep place. And I'll always have them there. So, creativity can be whatever you make it, right? And it doesn't have to be your career, right? And I think so much stuff gets lost in society now where people are always saying like, hey, if you're not perfectly, incredibly in love with your job because you're not on a yacht, because you're not on an island working remote on a laptop, which is what society wants you to think is the sexy job and what everybody think is happy. And okay, well, if I'm in a corporate job that I'm not completely in love with, well, maybe I should quit my job and do that. And that's not the case. That's not the case. And sure, there's other people that know exactly their lane that they want to do, and they quit their job for that specific purpose. That wasn't me. No. And when I did the soul searching, took that time off, I knew that, hey, I'm going to come out of here. I'm going to have some type of idea of what I want to do. I'm going to find my purpose. But there was no singular purpose. It was from a 10-minute clip with Chris Williamson and David Goggins, where I realized the whole purpose in life is me to be the best version of myself as I possibly can be, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And that just woke me up. It's like I'm chasing this one thing. And what happened after that? I got in a routine. I was reading a book every 2 days. I was working out twice a day. I was going to coffee shops. I was just educating myself. And then what organically happened? The job. Then the next season to here now. So there wasn't that one perfect direction that I wanted to go, and I found a job in a field of commercial real estate that I love, that I'm very happy with, but that job does not define me. That job is not my purpose, right? I can do my best possible job in this role as I can and live it and be fulfilled as much as possible, but there's so many other things that define me.
Folks, did you hear that?
I was on a rhythm right there.
Folks, did you hear that? Identity, the importance of identity and not allowing your role, your job, your position, your title, your organization, your company, not allowing that to identify who you are and who you can become and where you live and how you live today. And I think that's one of the biggest things where, and I'm not going to go into politics, but I am going to talk about COVID and the vaccinations. I don't care if you got vaccinated. I don't care if you don't get vaccinated. That's not what I'm saying here. But what happened in 2020 was companies were forcing you to get the COVID vaccination, and people looked at their job as their identity and said, if I don't do this and I lose my job, I'm going to lose everything.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people that went and got the shot and they regret it and whatnot, but their identity was tied up with the company. The identity was tied up with the role, the title, the position, the power. And even though they were against it, and again, I'm not saying you should be or shouldn't be, but even I'm talking about this specific group of friends and individuals, they were against it, but they did it because they thought they were going to lose their identity and lose everything about them.
Mm.
And they went against their own will to do it to keep the job. And in that moment, I was like, it has nothing to do with COVID. It has to do with you are identifying yourself as that role or that position, and it caused you to do things you didn't want to do.
Yes.
And I think that's the trouble with building your identity around what you do, not how you serve and who you are.
Right. Yes.
Like for me, the career transitions and chasing impact and how to help people is because that's what gets me up and gets me excited and makes me feel the best version of myself. If you took that away from me, the company impact effect, the podcast, the live events, the virtuals, the speaking gigs, the masterminds, if you took that away from me and the title and the company, I'd be completely content because I would just go do something else to help people, because it's not the company, it's not the platform, it's not the
the title, the ego chase,
no,
the
I just have
this,
to
the
go do
just,
something that
yes.
helps people. And I
Right.
would do it in a way that I can help a lot of people, that gives me the freedom to help a lot of people. That's why, I only work with close friends and family in real estate, because that was constricting me for the capacity in which I wanted to show up in the world to impact others, right? I can't sell a million houses. I'm one person, but I can gather hundreds and thousands of people over the course of 12 months and impact hundreds and potentially thousands of people over the course of 12 months, right? So, how do you get in a position where you can do something you love and you drill that down to the core value of what you do? But the company, even though it's my company, I can control everything and it's all my money, there's no outside investors, I fund everything internally. If I lost it, it doesn't take my identity. I just find a new outlet or a different way to impact and help others. And I think that right there brings me the most clarity. It brings me the most confidence. And it allows me to show up every day at the best possible capacity of who I am and who I want to be, without having fear or scarcity mindset or anxiety around not showing up and not living to my full potential or capacity.
And you're 100% spot on. And I think that was one of the first things that you and I bonded over in real estate, where we were so addicted to the hustle path, where it had to be networking event after networking event, coffee meeting after coffee meeting, content after content, because we were chasing one more client, one more deal. And then we had to take a step back and be like, for what? What are we doing this for?
For how? Dude,
You
I had
know,
11 coffee meetings in one day, and I was just like,
Sweaty Paul and Jimbo.
what am I doing? Like, this is
Yes. Every time I
miserable.
saw you, it was stress. Every time you saw me, it was stress.
It's just miserable. I'm like,
Right?
what am I doing?
Right?
Like, this is out of alignment. And that's something that I've realized and learned. You probably hear me say Nick Cavuto's name a million times because he's such a confidant for me. He's such a good friend. Like, there's pure love there, similar to how our relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
But like, he really supported and got me into a position where I understood it and had clarity around it. And once you have the clarity around how you want to show up and how you identify yourself and what identifies you, and the liquidity to move through it and the mobility, it's like a game changer.
Game
Like,
changer.
the stress levels, yeah, I'm stressed. There's pressure sometimes, but like,
Who does? Everybody goes through stress. It's life.
yeah, but like the level and how to regulate and how to control is so different when my identity is not attached to something, but more an who I want to show up with as authentically and true to myself.
Right.
Right? And the word authentic and all that is a buzzword these days, and everybody throws it around and whatnot. But the reality of it is, it's just real and raw, in my opinion. That's
Hmm.
how I define it. And that's why I'm so fine sharing my losses, my failures, my struggles, because it doesn't define me. It's just a chapter in the book of life. That's it.
Chapter in the book of life.
And,
When
and
you get
life's a
that
game. So
concept,
let's play the game.
exactly,
Let's play the game.
exactly, and you're going to look back, and if you think that life is going to be easy breezy, you're reaching every career milestones, all's great and dandy, then you're on this long, extended, sounds pretty boring chapter, right? Like nobody's going to want to read that book of no struggling, no climactic events, no soul searching moments. Like that's a part of life, and that's stuff that we all should or need to go through,
Totally.
because it isn't all perfect. Yes, it's going to be hard, and do you want to go through some of those events? No. And people's traumas are a lot. That you nailed this right when we started. When you look at, some people have some serious, they've gone through extreme traumatic situations and have a lot of family hardships, deaths of loved ones, cancer of loved ones, 10 days to live. Like those are perspectives that I can't fathom in these seasons of life that I had. And that's still not to take away from the pain and the struggle that we've all had. Like those are all real experiences. But just like you saw the child who was going through cancer and how happy and go lucky he was, what a great, philosophy and view on your situation. Sure, you can feel it, sure, you can suffer. There's no neglecting that. But when you put it into perspective and you say, well, this sucks, but, I'm going to be okay,
Well, I think too, it comes back to the concept of gratitude, right?
Right.
Like true gratitude. And, you know, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, but being thankful and having gratitude are two different levels for me.
Mm.
Being thankful is like, I'm thankful. Having true, real gratitude is like honest, sincere appreciation, like deep appreciation, right? Being thankful to me is like, oh, I'm thankful. And it's not that it's bullshit, but it's just not as deep to me. Like gratitude is like true gratitude is like such a high level of appreciation. And like when I think through things in a negative state, I have to go to that gratitude of like, well, what do I have? Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that others don't, and it could be I don't have cancer and that 12-year-old does and they're happy. It could be the woman that was at the gym who has no legs, who's doing pull-ups, and I'm over there bitching while I'm doing legs that my legs hurt. But I look over and I'm like, thank you, brother, because I needed that check and I just got
Amen.
goosebumps even saying it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
so funny. Now, like people who are requesting for me to be on their podcast and stuff, they're like, "You gonna do the goosebumps thing?" Because it's a gym mannerism, but it's real and raw and it's me. Like
Yes.
I'm gonna say every time when I get those goosebumps, bro, I never had goosebumps like
All
that.
right.
Now I feel that emotion and I understand it. So yeah, this is another mannerism for Jim. I just got goosebumps.
Well, back to our topic of you and I kind of grinding through. What's also, we just realized it's been 2 years since we first met. It feels like we've known each other for 20 plus years because of how close we became as friends. And that's the power of being able to go through life and the seasons of life together and always having each other's backs. Because we both have been through quite some highs and lows over these past 2 years. And to see where you've gone and you to see where I've gone to get to where we are now. I mean, it's fascinating. And to see from my
I couldn't agree
perspective to
more.
you is, you are a fantastic realtor, right? We've worked together, we've done closings, and I got to see you work that avenue. But as we just said, that we weren't at our best selves in that career path. And now you finding this channel, this purpose, this passion where you're helping out something. I don't even have enough fingers to see how much stuff you're involved in and all the different things you're doing,
Appreciate
from
that, bro.
masterminds to podcasts to writing a book. Can I drop that? I feel like that's something that's big that we got to
Yeah,
talk
I
about. You're
just I
becoming an
just
author, man.
built out the frame yesterday, so it's super new. I don't have a due date or anything like that, but I was just in flow, and started framing out what and how I've helped people through building relationships and what I've learned over time and how to look
Yes.
at it and how to have that deep appreciation, how to be honest, how to, create win-win situations. Like a relationship should be a win-win.
Mm.
There has to be self-interest because if you're just giving, it's gonna suck all your energy. Like you have to receive. And just going through all the stuff that I've gone through from relationships with family to relationships with brother, sister, mom, dad, to friends, to people who have not here anymore, who have died, people that I thought we had great relationships and we didn't, people that I didn't think we had a great relationship and they thought we did, right? Like there's just so much complexity around it. But what really comes down to it is human connection is a necessity, and the unifying bond in this world is love.
Mm.
And how do you give love and how do you receive love all starts with relationships. And I just want to share that and share my experiences,
There's a
Oh, and throw in a TV show too. I'm working on
Oh
that.
my goodness gracious! I mean, I feel like we got 5 more things to talk about, and we already got through my 10 fingers. There's a name, an alliteration that I'm thinking on my tab. Relationships are. I have a good friend that says this. Relationships are. I'm missing
Rocket
something.
ships,
Oh, there it
baby.
is.
Let's
There it
go.
is, baby.
Let's go.
Um,
Well,
I,
think about it, right? And this is why I love the rocket ship. Not that relationships help you blast off, right? Like that's the overarching concept. But think about a rocket ship, okay? In order for a rocket ship to take off, you see that, and it's so much exertion of energy, right? And it's like all this stuff has to happen, and it's so much energy, and then boom, it takes off, and then it keeps growing, and then what? It drops that energy off and just coasts nice and smoothly. So if you
mm,
think about a relationship, there's a lot of input in the beginning. There's a lot of uncertainty if that thing's ever going to take off. But once it takes off, you have to transition now to how to maintain it and how to keep it growing so it goes up and it doesn't just stay stable or start to deflate and diminish.
yes.
So I chose rocket ship because everybody thinks, oh, rocket ship, blast off. But if you actually look at how a rocket ship works, it's directly in line with how a relationship should work. And
Preach.
that's what the book's going to be about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
And my tagline is going to be, you don't have to be um, a rocket scientist. You just have to know how to use a relationship as a rocket ship.
Mm.
I haven't flushed that one out.
I
Little all over the
like
place
it.
there, but you
I
know where I was
like
kind of
it.
going. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So working on some of that too. But yeah, man, it's how can I create impact and how can I show up in a way where I am fully in line with what I think I and believe that I have the potential to do. My book could suck. No one could read it. No one could buy it. But you know what? I'm going to read it. And it's going to be a reminder to me to remind me of what I went through and what I've learned. And when I get fall off path or when things are rocky or I make mistakes, it's there for me.
Yes.
So I'm not, to your point, and our boy Rick Rubin.
You
Go ahead, drop it.
No, no,
Drop
no, no.
it.
You go, and then I'll
Create for yourself,
yes.
not the audience.
The audience comes last, and I think that philosophy and the psychology behind it makes total sense because so many content creators and even me when I was originally starting to put out content, I'm like, okay, what is the audience going to like? What are people in real estate going to like? Why are they going to click my page? Are they going to view this and want to hire me as a lawyer? Is this something that they're going to want to close with me about? Am I going to get a lot of laughs? And I'm constantly thinking about other people and other people's opinions, which is just a complete circle. But in reality is, we're here on this earth to create, one of the articles that I'm writing for the legal profession, which a lot of people think is strictly analytical, logical. Lawyers do not have any creative bones in their body, but I'm here to debunk that, right? I think lawyers can embrace creativity in the practice of law, and there's so many different avenues as long as they change their thinking and realize that, okay, there are creative ways to express yourself in your career, and obviously outside
True.
of the career too. So, for putting artwork out there in the world, that could be my writing in my journals. Those journals, that print form is going to be around for when I was longer than but until I die, right? And longer after. And that's something to remember. The poems, right? The poetry will always be there. It's always in writing. And yes, I'll get to a point where I would want to share all of those vulnerable experiences to the world. But it's the same thing with videos. Like if we're putting out a video, if we're putting something on YouTube, we got to think like, okay, we have to like it first. We have to feel something from it. This has to be something that brings us value. And if 2 or 3 people view it, or 2 or 3 people like it, or if nobody it's okay. We put it out for ourselves. And if it happens to land, if people find value from it, then that's fantastic. That's great. That's an extra add-on for us to put some form of art form out there that we're passionate about, that we can back behind first, not saying, oh, well, I was kind of talking about something that wasn't fruitful, that was a little bit fictitious. I don't really stand behind it, but I look really good in it.
Yeah.
And
man, what a joke. What a waste of time.
Yes.
What a waste of good energy. What a waste of showing up for yourself.
Right.
Like, wow, showing up for yourself. Yeah. I mean, that hit because, man, I've been there too, what can I do to satisfy others? Or last year I absorbed so much information because I was in such a new element that it got to the point at the end of last year where I was like, what am I doing that I truly believe in, and what am I putting out there that I've constructed in my own way, shape, or form based on what I've learned and observed, rather than trying to do what they're doing or how they're doing it. And when you do that, man, that just, that level of, it feels like I took a weighted blanket off my shoulders, and at one of the live events I was speaking at a couple months ago, I told the story about I wouldn't wear this scally cap because I didn't feel like I fit in Nashville when I moved here from Boston, but I'd wear the scally cap all the time in Boston. And I'm like, I can't go talk about brand and get on stages and help people develop a true personal brand if I'm not living it myself. And you know what's funny, dude? I put the scally cap on and I've had more people tell me how good I look. And not saying oh, Jim looks good, but the complete opposite of what held me back for 5 years is what the reality was.
Right.
The reality was the complete opposite of what I thought it would be, which caused me to hold myself back of who I truly was.
Yes.
And it's just
because you're not only,
and I don't regret it, because we talked about regret earlier, right? But I also feel comfortable enough to be that was stupid, Jim, and I won't do something like that again.
Right.
I don't like wearing dress shirts, so I'm going to be the dude that always wears a t-shirt
with a sport coat.
It's a good look because it's comfortable for me, and I don't care what people think.
Yes.
I used to wear, dress shoes every day. I used to go out after work and drink till 2, 3 in the morning, get up, be at work at 7, and not ever wear anything but dress shoes. And I didn't like when dress shoes scuffed up and looked bad, so I always had to have a fresh pair. And I'm like, I fucking hate wearing dress shoes. They're the worst. They're super uncomfortable. So now it's I wear, I still wear sneakers, but they're Cole Haans. They look dressier because I do like the brown shoe look.
Sure.
But I'm like, dude, you know how comfortable those things are? You'll never see me wearing dress shoes. Matter of fact, I was saving one pair because I bought them and wore them once, and I just threw those damn things out 2 weeks ago. And I was only holding them because I felt guilty that I paid $160 for them, and never wore them. But I'm like, no, man,
That's
we're
not
cleaning out Jim Morris's closet
that's
for real.
that's not you, you know, and you can't live life worrying about others' opinions of you.
True.
But you know what's worse is worrying about others' opinion, or worrying about what we think other people are saying about us.
We create our own
That we
stories.
create our own stories. We're thinking like, okay, that person's viewing, that person's not liking my photo. I haven't talked to them in a while, so who knows what fictional stories they're coming up in their head. We're making this whole storyline of why they're not talking to us or why they're not responding. And how much energy does that take?
Dude,
It takes it away.
you know when I realized this? It was about Caitlin was pregnant with Ellie, and we didn't have Ellie yet. So like Ellie's 15 months. Maybe this was 18 months ago. So say a year and a half ago. And Caitlin was in her hormones and she was pregnant, right? Like I think it was a couple months before we actually had the baby. And she was like sad, and like I was like, "What's up?" And she was like, "I don't know. I just got in my head that you didn't want to cuddle with me because I was like big and super pregnant, and like I never even told you it was bothering me, and I never even like communicated that. All I and I was and because I was like, all you had to say was let's cuddle, and I would have grabbed you and cuddled. Like, and she's
Right.
like, but she identified it and shared the whole like start to finish situation and was like, I was getting upset and that's why I was like this, but I didn't communicate it. And she realized it, pregnant, hormones, and like I was just like, wow, that was such an admirable thing to share with me. One, and number two, like that just put so much into perspective. Like she was upset and feeling like there was distance and I didn't want to cuddle with her when I didn't even know she wanted to cuddle. I thought she was just super pregnant and didn't want to be touched. But like it was like this little thing where it was like, but she had so much awareness to it, and I was like, wow, that was impressive because you recognized your feelings and emotions of something that you didn't even communicate that I would have solved, but it was in your own head. Like it was just this moment of clarity where I took that into so many other things. And I'm like, she's like, I made up a story that wasn't real.
Mm.
She made up the story that I didn't want to cuddle with her when I never said that. And that's not true. Right. And she was like getting stressed out and like all this stuff about it. And I'm like, wow. And ever since that day, man, it changed me because I'm like, I make up these stories that aren't real and I stress out about them and I have anxiety and I worry and it's not even real. And no one even knows the story. I'm the only one that knows that story because it's not even real and I didn't share it with anybody. And it drove me crazy for a week. Like, that is insanity. Like, that's really insanity.
And 95% of the time, it ain't true, or it ain't even close to being true.
Nope.
Right? And when you find it out, sometimes you may not get an answer, but you're still spending useless energy by trying to figure out what you think they would think.
It's like, it's Caitlin said she'd be home at 9. It's 9:15. She must be dead on a side ditch. Why the fuck would that be the case?
You go from 0 to
Why would
100
that be
like
the
that.
case? She could have just was eating dinner and the waiter didn't come over, so she mistimed it by 15 minutes. Like her girlfriend may have had an extra margarita and she wanted to drive her home to be safe, so she was 20 minutes late. Like, but my mind would be like, oh, she's dead in a ditch, and it's like, no. Like, what am I doing? I'm creating worry, anxiety, and a fucking story that's not true. That's giving me emotions that aren't true, that she doesn't even know about and no one even knows about, and I'm suffering from the story that I created in my own mind.
That's content generation 101. Right? It's like you've gotten past that. I've gotten past that, which is hard. It's like you create something vulnerable, speak from the heart. It's hard to share that, or hard to want to share that to the world because you're worried about people are going to think you're weak. People are going to be like, oh, why would Brad say that? Why would Jim, be vulnerable enough to say that? They're professionals in this world. Like, they shouldn't be expressing themselves. But the thing is if we say this, it could help somebody. It could resonate with somebody, and they could say, hey, I'm also going through that, Brad. I'm also going through that, Jim. Thank you for saying that, because more chances than not, those rumination stories, those stories telling, Everybody's a
doing it.
human. Our minds are built to think. We can't control the thoughts. We can be more self-aware of them, right? We don't have to pay attention and latch onto them, right? I mean, I could go down a whole rabbit hole after my yoga training and my meditation retreats that I've been on. But needless to say, is your mind's gonna ruminate, right? That's human thoughts. But you just got to take a second to say back, is like, is it true? Chances are no.
But you know that on average, the human person has 60,000 negative thoughts a day.
It's unbelievable.
And I guarantee you 59,999 are probably not even real.
Not even close to being real.
Yeah.
Speaking of thoughts, we just talked about this. Tell us that fun fact about babies.
Yes. So children on average have 450 times a day where they laugh, where adults on average only laugh 15 times a day on average.
That's crazy.
So like, think about that in perspective. And we know why society and us creating stories that don't exist, or us putting more weight on things that happen because we think futuristically that all these other negative things that could happen, and we worry and they don't, right? So it's like, how do we become that inner child again? How do we live in bliss like my 15-month-old who's just happy? And how do we push out those negative thoughts and those negative people and those negative surroundings? Like, it's not easy, but we've got to work on it gradually. Like, I want to get back to laughing 450 times a day.
Right?
Like, you, me, and Jake at your house
Oh my gosh, we
ago,
almost caught up to the baby.
Dude,
We were dying
literally, my abs hurt the next day.
Yes. And sometimes you forget about that, right? And sometimes, like, the hustle culture will bring you where you always got to be thinking you got to be doing something productive. You got to be listening to a podcast. You always got to be talking about game plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that built our relationship so much because we spent the time together, right? Human connection is everything. We're built for connection.
We have to.
But spending that time, being three close friends, just making fun of each other, talking about funny stories, the good times, the bad times, being vulnerable. And all we were doing was hanging out in my apartment. It was simple. We ordered some food from the goat. We hung out for a couple hours, and we had the time of our life. It was great.
Didn't even turn the TV on.
Didn't even turn the TV on. We weren't even on social media.
No. I think I looked down and there was like 18 text messages, and it was like, cool.
This was a great night.
Yeah.
Not to say that we wouldn't be able to take the town like we did before your event that one time. I think that should be a ritual. Every time before an Impact Live event, we got to go out, you, me, and Jake, and just take the town, have fun, and then set the tone for the Impact weekend.
That's it. I'm ready, baby.
You know?
Let's go. We'll also pick up some new attendees while we're
out.
A couple
what are you guys doing? Hey, what are you guys doing? I'm Brad. I'm Jim. Throw out a couple. I need to get some Brad Ball Impact. You make me those guys? I'll be like a correspondent or like a brand ambassador.
That's it.
Impact.
Hell yeah. Man, what a good conversation today, bro. Like, regret and creating our own stories and sabbaticals and mistakes, and man, like, we went in today.
I'm glad that, because I think the last time we've chatted, we haven't talked about regret, and I'm glad that we dove into that, because that's a human emotion that a lot of us experience, sometimes to higher degrees than others. But
yes,
when you go through something like that, you study it, you become interested in it, right? And that's something that I've done over the years. I'm very fascinated by it, but now I'm a lot more self-aware of that, even though I haven't gone through cancer, right? Even though I haven't had that, full-on exact experience that kid was having. I have my own experience, and I have that to look at in perspective, to know that, hey, what I went through was real. That was painful, right? That was struggle. But look, I was able to get through it, right? Took some time. Didn't happen like that. Didn't happen, immediately. I didn't wake up one day and say, you know what? I made the best decision ever. It took some time. Took a lot of self-reflection. Took a lot of work. And it does get better, and it will get better.
The only way out is through.
It's through, baby.
You heard it from Brad Ball
Come
himself.
On.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here.
Man.